Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we're honored to be joined by Dr. Phil Wenk. He's the president and CEO of Delta Dental of Tennessee, and also Jeff McCormick. He's the senior director of stewardship with Interfaith Dental. How are you two doing?
Doing great, Jeremy. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a lot about Interfaith Dental, a lot about Delta Dental of Tennessee, and a lot about things that are going on here in our community. And so let's start with you, Dr. Wenk. Give us a little background on Delta Dental of Tennessee.
Well, we sell dental insurance, and that's where we wanted to stop that being all we do is when we changed our basic mission statement to say ensuring the health of the people of Tennessee, and we spelled that with an E and not an I. I think that's critical, that I've shared with a number of my Delta Dental associates across the country, reminding them that, yes, we have to sell business to be successful and do good, but by the same token, we need to look beyond that. And so for the last 7 years specifically, we created a foundation called Smile180. Smile180 was created to do three things, and these three things only. Dental education, that was one of our things, and we promote that through not only education material like the governor's educational leadership fund, but also through things like the two dental schools that reside here in Tennessee, because obviously we have to have educated young people, dentists and hygienists, to come out and serve the public. Then the last one we did, and probably the most expensive one we do, is the support of these working poor clinics, underserved areas across the state. And Jeremy, as you know, and I've shared with you privately, just the two of us, this state is in a woeful shape of losing dental support, dental health care across the state. There are counties in the state, at least 4 now that we know of, that have no dentist. I was in Jefferson County last week. The average age of the dentist in Jefferson County is 68 and a half years old. So as you think through those situations, who's going to replace those people in those areas? And honestly, what we found, as you know, is that the working poor clinics, the underserved clinics like Jeff represents, those are the people who have taken up the brunt of this. And, they have people come to them from Alabama to come to Nashville because they can't find services. They have people to come here from Kentucky. And the same situation exists across the 32 working poor clinics across the state. You can't imagine how bad it's getting, and it's getting worse. So that's what led to this next part that you and I talked about. And so we were blessed to be asked by Lisa Piercy that I would serve as kind of a co-leader of a idea to expand the governor's need of healthcare in the state of Tennessee. It's not just primary health, because that's certainly a problem as well. But what we wanted to share was, surprisingly to everybody, the mouth is still connected to the body. And so what we found was the access to healthcare, not just primary healthcare, mental health care, but dental health care, was really a challenge in the state. So the Commissioner Lisa Piercy was willing to sit and listen to us, to convene a group and say, okay, what do we need to fix and how are we going to do it? Well, a lot of it comes down to money. A lot of it comes down to addressing the problems, not pretending they're not there. And a lot of it becomes just to awareness. We have to make the population aware of this situation. So we came out of it with a few basic points. I think this is one of the things that we wanted to end with before we close it up. The first one, we felt like the size of the dental classes that provide healthcare coverage for the people of the state of Tennessee had to be increased. There's 100 young people who graduate from the University of Tennessee every year, about 65 that graduate from Harry. To give you an example, the year I graduated from dental school, there were 2 classes of 100 that graduated. Since that 4 million roughly population, and for the last over 30 years, it's been cut to 100. On top of that, now 20 of the young people who are at UT Center for the Health Sciences College of Dentistry are Arkansas, and they will return to Arkansas. So it's only 80 that we're turning out every year, some of which will go into private practice, some will go into other states. So you're never getting 100% of those young people. There was no reason to assume that we needed to double the class, but we did need to grow it, and we need to grow it directionally. Okay, so, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. So the anticipation over a 5-year period, and everything I'm going to talk about is a 5-year period, is that it would grow to 30 people. So it'd be 130 students, all of whom would be all the new 30 would be Tennessee students. So that was step one. And as you might guess, you got to increase the number of people that are teaching. You got to increase the faculty bandwidth. You have to increase the dentists who have to serve as teachers in the college. You had to raise salaries because the salaries were woefully low for the people who served that service. So that was one of the things that we built in. The second thing is how do you entice a young person to want to go to an area of need? There's a few challenges with that. Number one, the majority of the population has moved out of rural areas and they moved into the urban areas. And number two, they're graduating with massive debts. The average indebtedness across the country is over $300,000 is when they walk out of dental school. So how can we address that? Well, the governor and Commissioner Piercy came up with an idea that we would set a fee, a amount, if a young person would agree to move to a certain area and give 4 years of service in that area. We have two hopes. Number one, that they'll want to stay there. And number two, they'll build a big enough practice that others would want to move there. And for that, if they agree to that, it's a $300,000 debt forgiveness program, which is a massive number. This would be done over a period of time, and it would be done in conjunction with the Department of Health, who doesn't have enough dentists either. The third thing, and I think this is the really cool thing, was develop a concept of hub and spoke. So you couldn't build all these rural areas back all at once, but what you could do is find a center such as Interfaith and grow that using postgraduate students that could be there working in that hub at a price that's good to them, because this will be CME money directed through a hospital that flows right into paying their costs. So Interfaith wouldn't be out any money. And then expanding that to say, okay, these young people who graduated could go out and work in a health department clinic in Southern Tennessee or Northern Tennessee or someplace like that. So it gives you a lot of expansive area. And on top of that, as they took on more people, they would also take on more operational expense. So where it was a $40 encounter cost or repayment, the governor and the Commissioner Piercy agreed it should be at least $100. Now, that won't cover their full cost, but it'll bring them far closer to covering their full cost. So when you add all that together over a 5-year period, and it's all broken up and it's all contingent on success year one, success year two, it came out to about $94 million that the legislature passed virtually unanimously. Wow. So credit to the governor, credit to Commissioner Lisa Piercy, and credit to the people like Interfaith and Healing Hands and the University of Tennessee and Meharry University, who are willing to face these problems and help us fix them.
Yeah. And I think for the listeners, that's the context that I think is really important to understand is these are solving community challenges, not just for now, but for many, many years ahead. And when you look at, okay, we have a shortage of dentists stepping in, how do we graduate? And to your point, localize them. So for Tennessee versus training them and them going elsewhere. So how do we make sure that Tennessee has enough dentists to take care of our communities? And then going into the rural areas, which are underserved, and making sure that everyone is taken care of. How do you incentivize that on that side as well? And so I think, to me, kind of understanding the scope of, okay, these are community challenges. How do we come together and address them in creative ways? That's exactly what you're talking about. So very important in terms of what's going on. One more question for you is, what is exciting when you look at everything you're talking about, $94 million past, kind of where we're headed? Give us something that really is exciting as good news for where we're headed with this.
Well, and I've shared briefly with you, I think it'd be an email. I was recently in Kingsport this past week, and you go back to your really intuitive statement about community. So one of the things that UT doesn't have in Memphis is enough space for 130 people to be in the clinics at the same time. So they need a bigger clinical space. And no matter what they do to run undergraduates out in the program, that doesn't help. So I had a meeting, the dean of the UT College of Dentistry, and I had a meeting in Kingsport last week, and we will go before the Kingsport mayor and board of aldermen or council or whatever it's called. And what the intent is that Kingsport will actually build out a space big enough in their minds to house 20 undergraduate students in about the third year. Remember, it's money, money, money. Well, each of the money builds on top of each other. So you don't lose what you got in the first year, you carry it over, and then there's a next tranche of money. So by the third year, it's our intent and our hope to be able to have a facility up there that will house at least 4 of the postgraduates I mentioned earlier and up to 20 undergraduates. Now you've got people who are not only serving a community, but they're living in that community, and they're thinking it's a pretty cool thing to live in East Tennessee, or it's okay to work in a rural area. So, Jeremy, it's when I came out of there and I visited. I do 2 visits a year to the clinics we serve, except Interfaith. They don't have to put up with me that much, but everybody else, I go and visit, and the ebullience of these people, they are so excited. When you talk to these clinical directors and you say, well, wait a minute, so I don't have to try to find a dentist to work on Tuesdays. One of these young people will be working in that clinic on Tuesday, just like, oh God, you've answered my prayers. And then I look back, Jeremy, at the fact that over the last 7 years, we average giving about $3.5 million to these working poor clinics to keep them operational as they should. And it's still not enough, but it is a portion of it. To see where they've gone and where they were, because I was there when they were there, and to see where they are now, it makes me so proud of what we've been able to accomplish. It truly does.
Love it. Let's switch over and learn about Interfaith Dental and put all this into perspective as well. So give us a little background, Jeff, on Interfaith Dental.
Yeah, so Interfaith Dental is a nonprofit charity here in Middle Tennessee. We actually have 2 clinic locations, one in Nashville, one in Murfreesboro, and we serve a 10-county region of Middle Tennessee, serving low-income, uninsured folks. Sometimes to give a little color to the people we serve, we use the term ALICE, which maybe you've never heard. It's asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So you start to get a picture of people who are, young families trying to do all they can to serve their communities, to provide for their families, older adults who are trying to live and strive and thrive and just don't have access to those oral health needs. And so we serve those folks with care that is both affordable to them and easy accessible to them, so that they really have a traumatic, life-changing moment. They understand the importance of oral health, but also they get all the way well. As Dr. Wenk said, your mouth is connected to your body. And so we see patient after patient who have poor oral health actually have a lot of other medical conditions coming on. And so when we get to treat them and to be with them and to surround them with love and care, it gets their mouth well, but more often than not, it changes so much more. It changes their overall health, changes their psychological health, it changes their spiritual health. It changes a lot. And so for us, it's a really powerful thing, and it's something that we really value. And so with partners like Delta Dental, who, like he said, supports our clinic, it takes individuals, corporations, foundations, all these people that come together to make our oral health care work. And we both have both paid providers and volunteers to amplify that care. So we're a volunteer-driven clinic. Volunteers are coming in every single day of the clinic to serve with patients, but we also have paid providers. And so when you talk about a young workforce, it goes across the needs in so many different ways. We've been operating for 28 years now, started in the basement of a church with 2 chairs, and now we've got 26 chairs and always looking to grow and be bigger. And the things that really value for us is our CEO, Dr. Rhonda Switzer, as well as Dr. Wenk. We don't think small, and you can't think small in these kind of things, because the reality is the oral health is really bad in Tennessee. And so we've got to continue to think big. So the things that Dr. Wenk were talking about are some of those thinking big things. And we've done that for many years now, and trying to serve the community as best we can.
Give us an idea of numbers, because at this point you're impacting thousands. And so talk about some of the numbers in terms of the individuals and families served, but also, like you said, typical number of volunteers, budget, like give us some numbers.
Yeah, so we serve about 3,000 patients this last year. This coming year, we're looking to serve about 3,500. We did a market value this last full year, about $6.5 million market value. We do that on about a $4 million budget. And so about half of that, about $2 million, is raised directly from the community. The other half comes from funds like Dr. Wenk was talking about, and patients do pay on a sliding scale to give them that really connection to the clinic and to their own oral health. And so it takes a lot to raise from the community. Like I said, we about those 3,000 patients, though, we're having close to 13,000 visits with those folks. They're coming multiple times to get all the way well. So the thing that sometimes people don't think about is you and I, if we are blessed with access to oral health care and have for our life, we might go twice a year to the dentist to get a typical cleaning, and they found one filling, they figured it out, and we moved on, right? The people we're dealing with haven't been to the dentist sometimes their entire life, and if they have, the needs they have are pretty great. So again, they're coming through on a pretty high level, and so it's a wonderful thing to be able to serve those community. We've grown every year we're in existence, and the amount of people we've served speaks to both the need and also unfortunate, need, but also the support that the community gives so that we can continue to do that.
And I think in your case too, you look at a thriving metropolis that's growing tremendously. Then you factor in things like inflation and the economic of not being able to afford a home and what that means in terms of the disparities and creating more of that. And so my point is, when you look at the need and what you're doing, you're playing a very vital role in the community to serve those who really need help and are having to make tough decisions in terms of dental care or food on the table or clothes on their children's back. And so you're playing a very important area in terms of being able to make sure that citizens are taken care of. And then when you look at everything that we were talking about at the onset, the challenges, but also the opportunities, give us a little bit of that side when you look at what this means for the community at large. As you mentioned, the mouth is that front gate for your healthcare. It's also too job opportunities, upward trajectory. Your smile is your confidence, your opportunity. So talk about kind of what you're doing in the context of why this is so important in the larger scope of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. The impact that it makes on someone's life, like I told you, is so multifaceted. And sometimes we take it for granted. But if you think about putting just a name onto it, I think of people like Michael. Okay. We met Michael, and his oral health was really terrible. He was working a construction job. He was getting up, doing the best he can do. He said some days he was in so much pain, he couldn't even think straight, right? After Michael Care is done, not only is he caring for himself, it gave him the confidence to go start his own construction business. So think about that sustainability for his family, right? Because he was able to actually rise beyond his own health needs. It happens all the time. One of the stories we captured with Delta Dental is a girl named Samantha that I still think about on a daily basis when I get up and do what I do. A young mom, 3 kids, trying to just survive, waiting tables. And you've seen it probably, you and I. We wait, someone who's like, well, maybe they have a little bit of an oral health needs there, right? We got her all the way well, and she moved on to another schooling to get a better job. It happens time and time again because the reality is we're very judgmental people. We often say we aren't, and we try not to be, but it's really hard not to. If I go sit in front of you, Jeremy, and say, hey, I'd like to work for you, the first thing you're going to see is my smile. And so that's really important. And so it does give people better job opportunities, but even beyond that, you think that's that young people, right? A lot of our population we're serving now is older adults. We've had older adults. When I say older adults, sometimes 60 years and older is what we kind of capitalize that. And we've had people who tell us, no, literally, I was hiding out in my home because I was so afraid to go to the grocery store, to be seen, to be afraid. Not only are we, increasing their life expectancy because the bacteria is out of the mouth, and Dr. Wenk can speak to all that oral systemic care, right? But it's just the fact that I got up and I can go to church again, and I can live my life again, and it's a really powerful thing that I think until you're sitting in the chair next to somebody or until you're hearing someone say it, you might not think it's that big a deal. It's a huge deal.
What does Delta Dental of Tennessee and the Smile180 Foundation mean to Interfaith Dental?
Oh, it's the means everything does, right? So a funder not only gets our mission so well, but that actually backs it up with funding and care, support through their conferences, to do Smile Power Week, which we're celebrating, and all the things that they do to do what Dr. Wenk said. Think bigger than what we're doing now because the need's so great. So those kind of funders who not only give the actual care, the dollars that really matter, but really care about your success, care about you thinking about how you can serve people better. It gives you just the confidence to go out and do it. And so those kind of funders are amazing to us.
How can the community help? So obviously, when you look at what Delta Dental of Tennessee, the Smile180 Foundation is doing, parlay that over into the larger community. How can we help your efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that question because it really can start with just one-to-one. If you think as an individual, go and make a gift right now, you're going to help a person in the chair right now that's getting that toothache out. But beyond that, we have special events throughout the year. We host golf tournaments, which is coming up here in a couple of weeks. We host galas and special events and all throughout the year to help people come have a little fun and give back. But if you're involved as a community or a congregation, maybe your faith community, ways they can give back. So it takes all levels and all kinds of people. We really mean it when we say every financial gift is a substantial gift. And so we ask that you just to give as you can, because it really does go directly to care for those people to make them well.
Wrap up on your end, Jeff, with website. Where do we go to learn more about Interfaith Dental?
Absolutely. You can check us out at interfaithdental.com, on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Interfaith Dental. Just go check us out. You'll see a big red donate button there on the homepage. Learn more. We've also got some videos on our YouTube page. If you want to see not just me talking about it, see a patient talking about it. It'll make a big difference. Go to youtube.com and search Interfaith Dental, and you'll find us there as well.
And then Dr. Wenk, go ahead and talk about where we can learn more about Delta Dental of Tennessee and the Smile180 Foundation.
Well, the easiest one is www.deltadentaltn.com, but we are on at all the normal social media. So at Delta Dental TN, we'll get you on all of them. And Jeremy, once again, very few people take the time and are as connected to the community as you are. I can't tell you what City Current is doing, not just for this, but for so many other charities across the state. I don't know how we can thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate it. It's all part of the mission and part of the responsibility to power the good. So Dr. Wenk, Jeff, thank you for all you do. You and your amazing teams, greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jeremy.